Hey, beautiful people. We're going to look at a conflict in Gabon. There's a coup happening right now. We're also going to look at how it's affecting markets in the most tasteful way possible. Jonatahn Taylor's NFL salary, how much is he making as an injured player? Very interesting. And then also, how much are mortgages these days? It seem like so expensive. Well, let's get into the numbers and who can really afford them. So, without further ado, let's take a look at this coup happening in Gabon. There seems to be their prime minister under house arrest. You see some images there. Military officers in Gabon have declared they're seizing president power from Ali Bongo, who's been there for a while. It's been a relatively stable, I'll call it a petro state. And so the ousted president is surrounded by his family and doctors, although there's some question marks on who is taking over, where the son is, where the wife is. But what we're going to look at first and foremost is we want everything to be peaceful there. I want to just have a disclaimer there that this is obviously a conflict, and military coups are not necessarily the best thing to happen. I noticed some statistics about how many of them have happened in French colonies in Africa in the past couple decades. And so I think we're at a number of like 9 French colonies that have had coups in recent history. And so, not to belabor it, I wanted to look at Gabon. It's right next to the Republic of Congo here. You can see it on a map. And I wanted to pay attention to, outside of the conflict, how it's affecting the rest of the world. Because Gabon, like, how many times have you really heard about it in the news or in markets and anything like that? And so I want to do a little research for you here. So we've got, here's some of their exports. We see crude petroleum. It's a petrostate. So we're looking at 60-40 split. 60% of their exports are petroleum products, most of that going to China. So if I were looking at China right now, I would say, you've got it's not a small amount. It's 2.24 billion is is the destination in 2021 going into China. And if you have to think, the context here is, what about after the conflict in Ukraine? I got to imagine that more exports are going to, going to other places. You see France, Norway, South Korea. Theirs are probably increased while China's maybe decreased because of the transfer of different energy resources from Russia to China during that conflict. But it's important to look at 60% here crude petroleum. This is what really caught my eye. 22% manganese ore. And so if you're wondering what's the point of manganese? Does that go into iPhones? Does that go into food or anything like that? No, this is really important and crucial for steel production. Manganese is predominantly used to produce metallic manganese in the production of steel. It improves hardness. It's a hardener for steel production and strength. And carbon steel, stainless steel, all that going into so many different industries. So this is something to pay attention to. You think this is a small conflict happening over in the western coast of Africa, but this is going to have ripples in both the fuel production and consumption in key areas in Europe and Asia, and then also in the production of steel if they are producing and exporting so much of this manganese. Now, this could be a bump in the road. Generally speaking, these ripples last a while when it comes to a coup or something like this, a military conflict. So if you have any insight on this, if you want to weigh in, and drop a comment below of how you think this could affect these areas. Now, my best tips, or this is what I would be doing with mine, I'm not going and trying to short oil markets or steel production companies or anything like that. I think it's something just to pay attention to. Maybe this is more of a buy opportunity if you see any ripples in the markets around that. But it's something to pay attention to. And, of course, prayers and all concern goes out to anyone that's affected. Military coups are generally not the most peaceful things in the world. So transitioning from that was a good few minutes on Gabon and their conflict. I want to take it over to NFL because we're getting close to the start here. I've got my own fantasy league revving up, about to do our draft this weekend on this Labor Day weekend. And so I noticed Jonatahn Taylor was on the PUP list, the physically unable to play. So this is an injured reserve list, and playing for the Colts, this is maybe what you're looking for here. Some of the detail on what he's making. This is my interest is what are these NFL stars earning while injured and sitting on the bench? What's guaranteed in the contract? So you can look at all this information. It's breaking news here, but I want to go down and specifically highlight here. You've got $7.8 million contract for 4 years, which is, hey, more power to you. Get that money. And a signing bonus of $3.2 million. His contract includes an average yearly salary of almost $2 million and a guaranteed 4.2. So he's still making $1 million a year, even if he is on the injured list. He's going to earn a base salary of about 4.3 million sitting on the bench, which is just like amazing. The world we live in today, it's crazy he's making this much money. So this caught my eye. This is his rookie contract from 2020 after becoming the 41st pick. So he's not new on the scene, but it's something where he was the 41st pick, and this was his contract, $1 million. And I mean, maybe one takeaway to look at this is really highlighting the fact that even though he's making $1 million a year, it's really easy to see that money waste away and fall through his fingers. And so if you're someone if you're part of the 0.001% that's going to make $1 million a year, it doesn't mean that you're a millionaire. It doesn't mean you have $1 million in net assets. Usually people that make more money, they just end up spending more money. And so this is a situation we see with a lot of NFL stars, and especially when they get injured, hopefully that's a wake-up call that they could maybe pay attention to their spending a little bit. And so I'm not trying to get on a soapbox here. I just wanted to highlight something where this is what catches my eye when I think of a lot of people think, oh, well, you have to make $1 million a year to be a millionaire. It's not true. I see people all the time, great examples, making $50,000 a year and saving up over time and investing it wisely and eventually having a net worth of $1 million. That's all your assets minus your liabilities, a net worth of $1 million. That's what a millionaire is. And so if you can be in a position where you're making $1 million a year, that's great. But if you find yourself with a huge mortgage, a big car payment, all this stuff, it gets eaten away pretty quickly. So you think, oh, well, if I was in that position, surely I'd be in a healthier spot, or I wouldn't waste that money. But the vast majority of people that win the lottery and have an influx of cash, they end up going bankrupt in a few years. And so that's one of those statistics, see, it's like 70% or something in that ballpark. And so the money doesn't change someone, it only amplifies what's there. And so that's one takeaway as you're looking at this. And so this next thing to highlight here that I found interesting was specifically about mortgage payments. I want to highlight something with the housing market that's so crazy right now, that the income, we're talking about income here, we're talking about someone who makes $50,000. Think of your like Homer Simpson family of 5 living in a suburban home with 2 cars, 3 kids, and all being able to work off of one salary. It's like that's the American dream, and that it's not dead. I'm an optimist. I think that there's so many opportunities out there, but it's tough. It's tough today for people to get in a position where they want to buy that home. I just heard a great example of someone who is graduating from school. They've saved up $60,000. They have no student debt, no car loan, no debt to speak of, no credit cards, and they're managed to graduate from school. And they're expecting their first kid, so they have a few months left to get settled into whatever life they want post-graduation. And they both end up with engineering degrees, but you're going to have one income. He's making $60,000, $70,000 a year, which is great. That's a great thing. I mean, a lot of people these days are coming out of school and they expect to make $100,000 or $200,000. The reality is that you're going to make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 with a great degree. And so that's a wake-up call for them, but they've saved $60,000, which is amazing, to do that through school and to save up that money for a down payment on a house. And they're starting to realize the reality is setting in, that the affordability of homes out there is so low affordability high cost for these new homes, that a $60,000 down payment with a 15 or 30-year fixed rate mortgage with the rates out there today is going to buy them less than half of the house that they expected. So the income required to qualify for a U.S. mortgage today is over $100,000. So it just broke that threshold, you'll see, for the first time in a long time. The last time that if you account for inflation and the rates and everything, the last time that it was so unaffordable was like in the 80s. And so it's older than I am, which, for the vast majority of people that even watch this on YouTube is like shocking and appalling. So what's interesting is perfection. So you have all these people graduating from college and expecting to be able to make enough money to be able to afford a home, afford a car, afford a family, all this kind of stuff. And the reality is just not there for most people. And so here's some professions that don't qualify for a mortgage on average. You got teachers, police officers, carpenters, nurses, plumbers, mortgage brokers, ironically. And so this is a post from Amy Nixon, Texas Runner DFW, that I found interesting. And so highlighting this, these are median numbers here. This isn't an average, this is the median. So that's important because it helps account for some of those outliers, the really rich and the really poor. This is median numbers. And then you'll see it shoot up here on this graph. And so you've got this steep incline right here that we're experiencing right now. And this is what people are feeling. This is what you feel when you go and you look for a house and you started your expectation here. Maybe you started school right here during the pandemic and now you're just graduating, and what you thought was going to be around this level of a price, maybe $70,000, all of a sudden now it's over $100,000 median to afford the income required to qualify for a mortgage. Okay, and we're not talking about the greatest rates and mortgages out there. It basically, what this means is that there are a lot of people out there that don't even qualify for a mortgage, even if they've saved up the money. And this is why I use that example. They've saved up $60,000 through school. They've done what seems like to be the impossible. They don't even qualify for a mortgage in today's market. So this is a new challenge out there. People talk about the housing market and how demand's going to go up and supply is finally going to go down the first time. I don't see that happening. And so if you want a prediction, if you watched all the way through this video, I appreciate you doing that. And I think you should subscribe and like it and comment on what you want to unpack next. But if you watch all this to find out what the mortgage rate's going to be like and what you think the affordability of houses are going to be like a year or 2 years from now, this is a great example of there's not a huge amount of buyers that are going to be buying up these homes and helping with the supply of homes out there. And the reality is that there's going to continue to be fewer and fewer homes to buy, and the people going to be buying it is fewer and fewer unless something drastic happens. And you might say, well, maybe in an election cycle, they're going to mess with rates and try to, win some voters back with something like that. That may be the case, it's possible, but are they going to be able to do it in such a way that really reverses this entire jump that we've seen? No, it's going to take a long time for the consumers to really catch back up with this. So if you had a trend line right here, and then now we're sitting at this level of 104, it's going to take a long time off this page here. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take years for it to get to the point where these match back up, where expectation meets reality. And so you can see that with some of the comments here. This is a big reason why I pulled this out here from Twitter. Again, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm going to repost and comment on a lot of these things to help curate your experience there. These are medians. It's an important thing. It's not the norm. And you see a lot of people saying, Man Bear Bull has an opinion of, you're assuming everyone's single, just stop. So only married couples and lower income workers should be able to afford a home. It's not the case that everyone's doing the same thing, graduating from school, getting married, buying a house, and having a kid all in the matter of 24 months. That's not reality. Most people are taking much longer to go through all of those stages. And so it's, the assumption is not that everyone's single here. The assumption is that this is the income it takes, that the AGI, the adjusted gross income of a borrower, whether it's a married couple or an individual, to be able to afford this. And it doesn't mean that every married couple cumulatively is making $100,000 or more. That's that misperceptions. Plumbers don't make 140K. I thought trades were all the rage right now. Some do. Some do make great incomes coming out of a trade school or a certification program, but $104,000 is a lot. It's going to take years for that expectation to meet reality. You see people saying UPS drivers qualify for 170K. That's hard work. That is not the norm. That's an exceptional job. And the reason why they're getting paid so much is because there's so much turnover. There's so many people that are unwilling to work those jobs. They continue to have to increase the marketplace value of what that income can bring in. And so these are great examples, great feedback. And then to round things out here, I wanted to highlight this chart right here, because people don't feel like buying homes. This is sentiment. This isn't a measure of the market or the cost necessarily, but this is sentiment where we're seeing a very, very low level of consumer sentiment when it comes to the buying conditions of buying a home. And so people say, oh, well, this is an indication of recessionary measures. Really, it's an indication of there being, a low supply of houses, and because of interest rates, a low supply of buyers. So if I were looking at buying a home right now, this is what I would do as a takeaway. I would be looking at my actual income, not the income I expect to get in 4 or 5 years, or the rates that I assume I could refinance to in a year or two. I'm looking at the actual rates today, my actual income today, and I'm going to be looking at 25% of my income going towards my housing costs. And so it's going to be half as much house as you thought you could get a year or two ago. And that when that reality sets in, just know that house prices are going to continue to go up because the supply still remains low, and the competition is slowly ramping up as this reality sets in of where rates are and what people can afford. And so every year you're going to have new people. And frankly, there's new homeowners coming onto the market from millennials and Gen Z coming onto the housing market in larger quantities than there are baby boomers that are exiting the housing market. And so you're going to find more competition in the market in the next couple of years. So if you were to sit on the sidelines and wait and not buy a house right now, then 2 years from now, you could see that house costing 10% more than what it did today, and rates staying the same. So what I would do is I would look for houses within 25% of my income with today's rates and what you can actually get with a mortgage. I would be looking at a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, nothing more. If you can afford a 15-year fixed rate mortgage with something that you could live in for a few years, that's going to be even better, because you're going to be able to accumulate more equity that you could roll over into your future home when the market does find a little bit more correction, or when expectation finally meets reality. But I would focus on being in the game and getting off the sideline, because if you were sitting on the sideline 5 years ago and you waited until now, you missed it. And if you wait another 5 years, my expectation is going to miss it again. So if you think that there's going to be some huge rubber band and the housing economy is going to snap back into reality, and it's not going to happen gradually over time, then your expectation of that is working against everything the Fed's trying to do, everything that housing market professionals are trying to do, everything that any economist really expects to happen. So again, my expectation and my suggestion to anyone out there that's looking at buying a home is to get off the sideline, get in there, and make it happen. And so I hope you enjoyed this. If this is all good information for you, if you'd like to dive in more, check out some of my other videos on this channel. Otherwise, I'll catch you up with the next one next time.